All right, welcome back. So we're working on Gem Wars. We're going to pick up another one of these types here. I think we'll do opponents. This one should go pretty quickly. So on the back end, the first thing I want to do is create a new class for this called, it's an entity, and it's called a scriptable object game opponent SO. And this is going to be an opponent SO and then an opponent SO ID. And then on the opponents, we're going to have a new I collection here of game opponent SO called game opponents SOs. Okay. We need to add, if I look at this, we need to add a new scriptable object, DTO here, called game opponent SODTO. And then we also need to add the new request. Game opponent create request. And this is going to be opponent SO ID. Now on our data access layer on the auto mapper, we need to add that here. As a game opponent. So now we have our auto mapper set up. In my scriptable object factory, we have two types here. The first one is a case when we have a game opponent SO. And we're going to add my dtos.add a mapper.map for my game opponent SODTO of my entity. And then we have our write, which is down here, which is a game opponent SODTO. Game opponent create request. Games opponents. Games opponent. Okay, so we don't have this yet in here. Game opponent SO called games opponent SOs. And then down here on my scriptable objects, we want to have a new one for the game opponent SO goes there and here, and this one is my game oops. It's like that, and then this one is an opponent SO that goes to my game opponents SOs. And that's now being called from here. Okay, all right, so that's done. We've got the game opponent, which is now being created. So we need to add that to our pipeline. So if I look at in my game single player, I should have this data access layer read opponent SO random. And we're going to include here a GUID for my game SO ID. And I'm actually going to pass this in as a game DTO. Game SO DTO. Because in here, I want to do my context.gameOpponents.where my it's active. And I want to say my x.gameSOID equals game.id. And now I want to select my opponent. And then I want to have this. And then we're going to map it. That looks good. And now in here, we need to have my game SO DTO called my game SO. Hey there, Mystic Soda. Welcome back to the channel. How are you doing? Welcome. Appreciate that compliment. Don't get too many of those anymore because I'm old. How are you doing today? And then this one here is going to be my I have it. I do not yet have my game SO. matchmadegame dot So the problem is that game is getting called here from your game type. So instead of passing this, this is going to be a game SO DTO called game SO. I'm doing good, thanks. So here I want to get my var game SO equals await my data access layer dot read. I want to await my context.games SOs dot first or default where my game type is equal to my game request dot game type. And it is active. Which means in my data access layer, why am I having to re-retrieve this? I should have this game SO, but it's new. So I want to have a task of a game SO DTO called read game SO DTO asynchronous. Passes in an ID for the game ID. We're going to say game type, and then an application database context. Like that. This one wants a game SO DTO so we can use the game SO. So now we need to add in here the read game SO DTO. Okay, so our function is down here. Bring it up to the top. Public virtual asynchronous task. So now my entity equals my await context dot game SOs dot where my game type is equal to game type and it is active. We actually just want to get the first one of those. Now, if my entity is not equal to null, then I want to do a DTO equals a mapper.map to a game SODTO from my entity. And my SO type here is a game SODTO. And then I'm going to return here my DTO, otherwise I'm going to return null. Where did that go? We put this under read opponent random. Like that. But you have this, so you can just do it as the ID. Which has an index on it, so it's way faster. That's it. So on the back end, we should now have our opponent's SO random. And because we put this in the Scriptable object data access layer, it should be here and ready to go. Okay, so now in the Unity project, we can create a new Scriptable object called game opponent SO. And this is an opponent SO. Okay. So now that we have the new game opponent scriptable object, we need to use it. So when this comes in, we have a new data exporter here, which is called a game opponent SO, which is a game opponent create request. And now we need to find all the places where we choose an opponent. So in offline, practice, where you're creating your players, create opponent and create opponent random. Right here. So when I create an opponent, I want to pass in the string of the game SOID. And then the same thing here. So here you want to say your instance is this.scriptable objects.of type your game opponent SO. And you want to do the where your game SO.ID equals game SOID. And then you want to select your opponent. And you want to do your first or default where your ID equals your opponent SOID. Same thing here for the random one. It's going to be var instance equals asset database.scriptable objects.of type game opponent SO, where my x.gameso.id equals game SOID. We want to select the opponent. And then I want to get the first or default. And I want to do this as an order by GUID.newGUID. So it's random. And that should be it for this one. So this is now your this needs to be a string called your game SOID. So we're going to pass in here a game SO DTO called game DTO. Like that. And then down here, we're also going to pass in the game SO DTO. And then pass this in as a game DTO.id.toString. Now, when you create players, is that after you create game? No. So this wants to have a game SODTO, but we don't know that. All we know is the game type. And you're going to have another one here called create game SO from your game type, like that. Okay, we got two errors now. The first one is that this wants a game type. So we can do this as a data cache.game.VM.game type. And that solves that. Cool. So now what we need to do is in my asset exporter, we're going to create these new objects. Call it create game opponents. This is called game opponents. Like that. And then on the title manager, we're going to have a new game SO called games and a new opponent SO called opponents. And then we're going to do a asset exporter dot create opponents. This needs to be called create game opponents. And we want to pass in my games and my opponents. Same as we did in the past. Open up my title manager. Bring in my 3 games. And my 400 opponents. Now I'll create it. There it is. just to make sure, which I'm pretty sure I already did, is on my scriptable object factory where I'm creating my opponents. Yeah. This will take a second. It's got 1,200 objects. It's making 900 objects. It's making, pardon me. Have to wait for this to finish. Pardon me. Just a second here. We need this thing to finish. I didn't expect this to take so long for 900 objects. 1,000 objects. 380 times 3. 1,100. There it is. So here we have our game opponents. You can see them all for the battle, pre-play, and practice. So we're going to create 3 folders. Battle, practice, and free play. And we'll bring the battle ones We already got snow here, says Chuck, and I see you starting the air conditioner. Yeah, I flipped it off. It's too loud. One of the reasons it gets hot in this room is, well, Chuck, I'll just tell you straight out. I got 2 lights in front of me. I got the light above. In this office, in the closet over here, I've got a FreeNAS, which is running 5 VMs on it. I've got another laptop, which is running Docker, and 8 containers. Also a Raspberry Pi and a 48-port switch. And a battery backup, all from there. Which is, so that's what's generating all the heat. Oh yeah, when I record guitar videos, those lights get me sweating. Yeah, they are hot. I agree, they are hot. Send me a guitar video of you playing. I know you've sent me some of other people playing, but send me one of you. Okay, so all of these game opponents, we're going to add them to the database, asset database. Like that. Come on. Saving everything. And there they all are. So we've added them all to the asset database. We have all of our game opponents here ready to go out to the server. Okay. So now when we try this offline, thank you, Chuck. I'll watch this as soon as I get offline. There's a very chill one. Fits with the break music. No worries, man. I just don't want to make you uncomfortable. Oh, crap. Looks like I didn't remove from the code base the bit which is creating these objects. So underneath asset exporter, we're going to comment all this out, and then underneath title manager, comment this out. We have to wait for this to finish. But as far as me, I'm out of time for the day. Thank you guys for staying with me today. I'll be back in the morning at 5:30, trying to get started again early. Get our early streams moving on. So if you guys have any questions, make sure you check us out, discord.pixelhorrorstudios.com, and I put all the videos up at youtube.pixelhorrorstudios.com. Have a great one, guys, and I'll see you in a couple hours. Later, guys. Bye.